Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, July 1st. Today we will continue to have lightning to deal with, which will continue for the next few days. Today the highest coverage of thunderstorms will likely be located across the area in orange, which will be a mix of wet and dry. Also, wetter thunderstorms will continue, especially across Utah and up into Wyoming. Today, the biggest potential for storms increasing fire potential will be across Idaho in areas that have not received as much moisture. Again, the storms will be more of a mix of wet and dry with gusty outflow winds, and these areas have been much drier with higher ERCs. As we move through Friday, we'll continue with lightning across many of the same areas, and then on Saturday, we'll likely lose some of our lightning over the southern areas of the Great Basin. Still a mix of wet and dry across the region. Looking at the last 24 hours, we had quite a bit of lightning activity across much of Nevada into Utah, with more isolated activity up north into Idaho and Wyoming. These thunderstorms, you can see from the precip map on the left, these thunderstorms were a mix of wet and dry. Some of the wetter areas in the Sierra and also across some of our areas where we saw greater lightning in Nevada and Utah saw anywhere from a tenth towards a third of an inch of rainfall, and some areas saw above a half inch. Further north up into Idaho, again, the precipitation with lightning was a little bit more spotty. Some areas did see some wetting rains in central Idaho, but for the most part, a mix of wet and dry and a little bit more isolated. Great Basin fire activity is shown here. You can see the new fires in the red circles. We had a reported 29 new fires for 64 acres across the Great Basin yesterday. So again, plenty of initial attack with these thunderstorms, but at the present time, we don't have any new large fires. Over the last 7 days, you can see the precipitation here on the left. Obviously associated with thunderstorm activity, and the higher amounts of precipitation have been across Utah and southern Nevada and the Sierra that have seen more consistent lightning. Very dry conditions still continue across Idaho, and over the last 2 weeks, the percent of normal precip on the right shows below normal precip across Idaho and then central and northern Nevada, and above normal precipitation, again with that moisture moving in over southern and eastern areas of the Great Basin. Looking at our fuel conditions continue to moderate across Utah, especially over eastern and southern Utah into southern Nevada, where ERCs have dropped below the 70th percentile in many areas. There still are some drier spots of central and western Utah up in the north, where ERCs are above the 80th percentile, and then still across Idaho, again, in areas that have not seen much of the moisture recently, we still are seeing ERCs above the 80th percentile. Looking at our current ERC charts, you can see again for central Idaho how the ERCs have continued to trend upwards and are now at record highs for the time of year. So still very critical up in Idaho as that moisture really hasn't made it that far north. Further south into the southern areas of the Great Basin, you can see from the green line, the ERCs have dropped significantly with the moisture, but they're still about normal for what we would see this time of year in many areas, and still near or above maybe the 85th or 90th percentile in some spots. So again, the moisture has moved into southern and eastern areas, but there are still certainly areas that are still dry in that region. The satellite image from this morning shows, again, just some scattered cloud cover across the area with that moisture that has pushed north across all of the Great Basin under that high pressure. So looking at our fire potential forecast for later this afternoon, you can see we still have some high risk across Idaho, where we will see probably a greater amount of lightning today than what we have seen in recent days. These thunderstorms still will be a mix of wet and dry, producing gusty outflow winds, but in areas that are still critical and haven't seen much moisture, we will have an increased fire potential risk in the north. Elsewhere, we will again continue to see plenty of lightning, increased initial attack, certainly across the rest of Nevada, Utah, and Idaho. However, the greater risk of larger fires is going to be up north. So on Thursday, today, the weather image on the left shows where you may see some of those scattered thunderstorms, probably a little bit less coverage over towards northwest Nevada and far southern Nevada. However, across the rest of the Great Basin, we will continue to see that lightning increase today. Winds will remain light under that high pressure, but again, gusty outflow winds will be the main threat. As we move into Friday, we still have moisture in place, especially over the northern half of the Great Basin. That drier air has pushed into southern Nevada, but elsewhere we will continue to see the risk of lightning. Do not issue any high risk for Friday, but we'll continue to watch areas of Idaho that do not see as much precipitation. Certainly initial attack will remain elevated on Friday. You can see from the weather picture here on the left where those thunderstorms may be located by Friday afternoon. Again, mainly over the northern half of the Great Basin, and then southern areas will see a little bit less lightning. No issues with gusty winds with the exception of outflow winds near thunderstorms. On Saturday, kind of a lot of the same, still moisture in place in the north. maybe some drier air still in the southwest or southwestern Nevada, that is. And then again, still increased moisture across the Great Basin. We'll see continued initial attack, but again, the greater risk for large fires is outside of our geographic area. On Saturday, the better chances of lightning will be in the northern areas, so still continuing for Idaho, Wyoming, northern Nevada, and northern Utah, and also for the Sierra into western Nevada. We will have more isolated activity anywhere across Utah, especially the southern two-thirds of Utah by Saturday. Southerly winds will start to increase over parts of southern Nevada on Saturday. These will mainly be gusts in the 20s, so nothing overly strong, but we will see that those breezy winds start to develop as that drier air pushes in. Forecast amounts of precipitation over the next few days, again, very spotty just with thunderstorm activity, but like we've seen in recent days, some thunderstorms will only produce light amounts of rainfall. Other thunderstorms could produce a quarter to a half inch. As we move into Sunday, still showing some lightning potential up in the north and probably the higher terrain of Utah. Again, still no high risk, as this will now be the third or fourth day of lightning in many of these areas, or even longer. As we move into Monday, though, into next week, this is when we're starting to see a greater push of drier air into the Great Basin. So we will see some of those areas in Nevada and Idaho and western Utah drying out already. Again, that will start on Monday, and then into Tuesday and Wednesday, we will see just a greater push of dry air across the Great Basin heading into the middle of next week. So as we go into next week, the greater threat as this dry air moves in will be the potential for holdovers. Although right now we're not seeing any gusty winds, so that will certainly be in our favor, but certainly a significant decrease in humidity and less lightning overall. No big changes in the 7-day total precipitation amount, as much of this lightning will fall in the next few days and going into the weekend. The 8 to 14-day outlook shows above normal temperatures for now mid-July, the 6th through the 14th, and drier conditions. So we will see a return of dry air next week into the Great Basin, but we will likely see another surge of monsoon moisture as we go towards the middle of the month. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.